So if a hunter takes one of these birds with a transmitter on it, what's the next step?
Yeah, so that's a real possibility for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, we can't put a sign or it'd be great if we could put a ribbon trailing on off the leg of the bird. Do not shoot me, Of course, that would be the invitation to shoot me.
Yeah. Like those helicopters at the beach with the big flag.
Right, exactly.
The award-winning Tennessee WildCast is on the air with the latest on hunting, fishing, boating, wildlife watching, and all things outdoors. Make welcome your host, drummer and outdoor expert novice, Jason Harmon.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee WildCast. We're glad you're tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of this show. This is all about Tennessee wildlife.
Yes.
And that's why we're here. Got Mr. Don King helping co-host.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for dealing me in around the poker table again here.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun show. A lot to talk about, and it's all about ducks today. We got Mr. Jamie Feddersen, our migratory game bird program leader. He's the expert upstairs on ducks, right?
That's what they say.
All things migratory. All things migratory.
Well, yeah, migratory game birds. Yep.
Yeah. So we're glad you're here and excited to talk about ducks today. And we're going to throw in some goose information and some projects y'all have been working on and studies and that kind of thing. So should be a good show. But I wanted to first let everybody know about this little guy here, this new hat. I'm not sure which camera Todd wants to put this one on. Maybe right here. How's that? This is a new hat that you can get online at gooutdoorstennessee.com.
And if you're listening on the radio, it's a brown, full-covered hat with a leather-looking logo on the front of it. With our agency logo.
It says Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency in a leather patch. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I got an early issue of one of those and got to wear it to a football game the other night. Nice and warm. I'll have to admit.
Yeah, I got one too.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. So for only $20, you can have one of those mailed to you.
Yeah.
That $20 donation goes to help
support our foundation.
Exactly. All things wildlife. So all the programs we're doing and all the outreach that we're doing helps fund those programs and even studies and stuff like we're doing here.
Right.
Talking about today with some of the duck stuff, and we're going to get started. Jamie's going to give us an update. Last season was pretty tough on the birds. It didn't get cold. There's lots of water on the landscape. We didn't shoot as many ducks last year as we thought we would. Didn't have as big a season, but tell us about what was going on then and what this year looks like.
Yeah, that certainly was that was the sentiment last year. That's lots of water. Of course, we had some unprecedented rain during November, December, January. It was just way more rain than we had ever seen before. Didn't get cold up north. Birds didn't get, and that's certainly, we heard that. It wasn't just Tennessee. It was all of the states around us, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi. Everybody was, hunters were saying the same thing. And if you look at the harvest numbers, for a lot of states, it definitely reflected that. Louisiana and Mississippi's harvests were way down. Surprisingly, Arkansas's and Tennessee's, we weren't that far off of what our numbers usually are for harvest. Now, what I think that means is, so coupling that with some of our surveys that we do during the winter, we do refuge counts every couple of weeks on all of our state-run refuges, and our numbers were they were a little bit lower than they were in previous years, but they weren't off a lot. But then there's another survey that happens on the first week in January. It's called the Midwinter Survey, and we were down about 500,000 birds. And that's a lot for us to be down on that count. So where those birds were at, had they not come down by the beginning of January, that's possibly the case. Did they ever arrive? We don't really know. However, our harvest doesn't really reflect that we didn't have a whole lot of birds, because our harvest was not too far off what it normally is. So I think there were some enterprising waterfowl hunters out there that found some places where birds were hanging out. They were spread across the landscape. Lots of water, for sure. Ducks are notorious for exploiting newly flooded areas. I mean, areas that haven't had water on them for a while, ducks will be there on it and taking advantage of it. And any enterprising, wily, creative duck hunter is going to figure out where those are at, and they're going to take advantage of it. So we still had a fairly decent harvest. States above us, north of us, their midwinter surveys were a bit higher than what they normally are. Their harvests were pretty average and a little bit above. So certainly weather didn't get them down to us in time. It did get colder. Rain stopped in January, late January, got cold. We had a big cold snap in early February. And then all of a sudden we had birds. Well, the season's closed by then.
That's what I was going to say. How long? What's the season range there?
So we can hunt until January 31st.
Okay.
And so that's what's allowed by the feds. Yeah, that's the latest we can hunt according to federal frameworks. And so it doesn't matter if the birds show up on February 10th. We can't hunt them. Yeah. So we had a perfect storm of things didn't go great for us last year. Well, so what does that really lead into? If we didn't have a great season all around, that might mean that there's more birds actually headed back to the breeding grounds. So that's a good thing, okay? Getting a lot of birds back to the breeding grounds, you need to have birds to, more ducks to make more ducks.
Yep.
And we sort of saw that might be the case for a lot of species, the bread and butter ducks for Tennessee, the mallards, the gadwalls, the green-winged teals. When the Fish and Wildlife Service does their springtime breeding duck counts, those species were up from last year. Not a lot, wasn't gangbusters, but they were up a little bit. There were other species that were down, blue-winged teal, shoveler, redheads. There were some other species that were down from what they were last year. So you sort of look at the overall total of how many birds were counted, how many breeding birds were counted last year, 2018 versus how many breeding birds were counted in 2019. And overall, it shows that the number of ducks are down. So again, you got to kind of take that with a grain of salt. Even though the total number of birds was down, for Tennessee's bread and butter ducks, they were actually up.
Right.
And the nice thing is that for pretty much all of those species, despite the fact that they may have been down from 2018 to 2019, they're still, almost all of them are above the 10-year average, the long-term average. So ducks are in pretty good shape. We got a couple of problem children, the northern pintails, the scaup. There's something going on with those ducks that we still haven't quite dialed in on to figure out what's going on with those guys and why their populations continue to go down. So we've still got a lot of work to do there, but duck populations are doing pretty well.
Okay.
They're doing pretty well.
I think we've got a graphic that we can show, and if you're listening, make sure you go check that out. But it kind of shows the differences from 18 to 19 and the long-term average, and some good numbers to look at there. I had a note around 200,000 ducks each year. We harvest around 200,000 ducks a year.
Yeah, right. That's kind of sort of average. 200,000 is about our mark, and that's what it's been for maybe the last 5 years. Not quite 200, but right around there. So yeah, we get about 22,000 duck hunters every year, harvest about 200,000 birds. Of course, our bread and butter bird is the mallard. That's our big one. We shoot about 90,000 of those every year. Gadwall, I think we're about 15,000 or so.
16,
16, yeah.
13 for the American
green-winged teal.
Green-winged. Yeah, I got your abbreviations are hard to follow here.
Okay.
Yeah, I got that. But it kind of matches up to this waterfowl survey that we're looking at here. It's from the Tennessee. Tennessee matches up pretty close to that.
Yeah. So
our top birds are their top birds.
Well, yeah. So it's really interesting to be in a mid-latitude state. We're sort of like when you sort of look at that. I think anybody that's into ducks, they've seen these classic flyway pictures where all of the birds are spread out across northern Canada and they sort of funnel down into the Mississippi Valley. But like if you look at where that funnel point is, where all these birds up north collect, we're like right there. Tennessee and the boot heel of Missouri and the northeast corner of Arkansas, that's where all of the birds are meeting.
Right.
Right there. And so we're West Tennessee is a really great spot for lots of ducks to converge on. And
our refuge system is a great invite.
Yeah, it really is. Tennessee is fairly unique in that, and it's not a lot of state wildlife agencies that own refuge, that run their areas as refuge for ducks. And so we're fairly unique like that. And there's some. It's a good thing because it definitely holds birds in the area. It's sort of a. There's like a catch-22 there. It's great. You want them there in your area because it's going to hold birds longer. But, if you're hunting right around those refuges, you kind of, you're happy, but you're not happy because they're holding all the birds.
Right,
so you don't get to shoot at them as much. But, so, I think they're a very, very necessary component of the management that Tennessee does on the ground for ensuring that we're allowing space for these ducks to come down and do what they're supposed to do. We have a different idea in mind for them. As hunters, we want to shoot them. That's what we want them for, and that's what we think their job is. But really, their job is to come down, do some courtship, find a mate, eat food, get fat, get ready to fly back, and go make more ducks. Like, that's their job, and they got a lot going on. And
here we interruptions.
Yeah, so here we are out, hunters blasting at them and disrupting what they're supposed to be doing. But by having these refuges, we allow them these places to go and do these things so that they can continue to do what they're supposed to do as ducks.
Right.
Yeah.
I had a note here about the Dakotas. Don, did you want to?
Oh yeah. You had mentioned about the dry snaps in the Canadian pothole areas.
Right. So just because we have a lot of birds that might head back to the breeding grounds and our breeding numbers are good, we're saying that mallards are up, gadwalls are up, and green-winged teal are up from last year. Well, that doesn't necessarily equate to lots of birds being produced because they have to encounter the habitat conditions that are right for them to do some breeding. Well, the Canadian prairies were pretty darn dry. Lots of the areas that they might go to didn't have the habitat that they needed in order to make more babies. Right. So I'd like to temper hunters' expectations. Yeah, we sent lots of birds back, but that doesn't mean we're necessarily going to get a lot of birds back to us. So, but it may be a little saving grace in there is that the Dakotas, the U.S. prairies, were really, really wet during the spring and summer. And so reports on the ground is that there was really good production there. So that could be a saving grace. It's a little bit, it's yet to be seen what might come of production this year. Real good in some spots, maybe not great in others. And are they going to balance each other out? Time's going to tell.
Yeah.
We'll see that if we get cold weather and no rain and migration works the way it's supposed to. And we might realize good hunting, maybe, again, I want to temper expectations. Just because we got lots of birds on the ground, we got to make sure that we don't get too overconfident that we're going to have tons of birds in the sky.
Sure.
Okay? Because as we saw last year, things happen. Birds didn't show up for whatever reason, so.
All right. Well, one thing before we jump to the projects y'all are doing, I wanted to mention these bands hanging here behind me.
Those neck collars?
These are neck collars for Canada geese,
Canada geese, yep.
And we harvest about 20,000 of those a year in Tennessee.
Yeah, we sure do. So we band. We do.
Yeah, why do we neck band them?
Yeah, so we put bands around their ankles. Most everybody's familiar with bands that go around the legs of a bird.
Sure.
They're silver, got numbers on them.
Right.
And we do that. We put about 2,000, maybe 2,500 of those on geese every single summer. Our biologist technicians, we got a whole crew of people that get out there and do this. Every once in a while, we get been doing it for a long time with Dr. Dan Combs at Tennessee Tech. He has been putting out neck collars. So these are collars that obviously go on the neck, and they've got, for those of you who are on the radio and can't see, they've got 2 letters and 2 numbers. So it's like,
and you can read them from way
off. You can with binoculars, spotting scope, and even with the naked eye, you can make out the 289J that's on there. And so that's the whole point of it, is that you can see that bird from a long distance. You don't, because you can't see the leg band from that.
Don't have to harvest it or recapture it with some sort of capture.
That is the way of recapturing, is by sighting that neck collar. Cool. So Dr. Dan Combs over at Tennessee Tech has been putting these on for about 20 years. The cool thing about this is, like, with geese, they're monogamous, and they have these really tight, cohesive family units, and they have these intricate social structures. And so when you mark geese with neck collars like this, you can identify parents of and their progeny. You know which ones are their kids, and then when their kids have kids, young geese, like, he's got family trees, family histories for an amazing amount of geese around in Putnam County, around Cookeville, around the Tennessee Tech campus. And he's like,
that's amazing.
Really seeing some interesting social structure, social dynamics using this neck collar information. It's really cool stuff that he's looking at. So, if anybody sees one, please report it. Go to reportban.gov and report your neck collar number.
I just wanted to make sure we could point those out. Thanks for studio decorations. Plus, I'll get you a few. I'll try and get you a few ducks this year. Yeah, I'm still working on it.
I know. I'll try and get you some.
Hey, speaking of geese, are these mostly resident geese? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So in Tennessee, we just don't get a lot of migrant geese anymore, and the geese that we're banning are resident geese.
Okay.
The new term for them that we call them temperate breeding Canada geese.
Okay.
Because they don't breed in the Arctic like they used to.
Right.
These are pretty much every state in the U.S. now has a resident population of geese.
Okay.
And we are definitely one of them. And I think our numbers are right around. We have maybe about 80,000 or so. I think the last count we had was somewhere around 79,000. So we're up around 80,000 geese statewide, harvest about 20,000 a year. So we have a pretty decent sustainable population. Yep.
Wow. All right. Well, excuse me. A lot of projects are going on upstairs, a lot of research projects, and one special project that we want to talk about today is with Tennessee Tech, partnership with them, right?
Yeah. So about a year ago, we got the green light to do a telemetry project on mallards. And so we're teaming up with Dr. Brad Cohen from Tennessee Tech. We put together, he and I talked about some stuff, put together a really good proposal, and got the commission to agree to that this is some information that we need as an agency to manage our areas better. So what we're doing is we're going to be, over the next 3 years, we're going to be capturing mallards that migrate down into Tennessee in the winter. So in November, December, January, we're going to catch mallards. And we're going to be putting GPS transmitters on these guys and letting them go. And so we're going to be able to track where these birds are going. And the neat thing about these transmitters is that you can program them to send a location as frequently or as infrequently as you want. So we could get 5-minute locations on these birds, what they're doing every 5 minutes, where they are or 15 or an hour or whatever we need it to be at.
Wow.
And so that's the cool thing about it, is that you can get as little or as much information as you want to. And the whole idea behind that is, let's look at where these birds are sitting down, and we're going to go in. We've got students and technicians on this project that are going to go in and measure the vegetation characteristics of that particular location where that particular bird sat down.
Okay.
So that we can find out water depth, vegetation structure, vegetation composition, taking core samples and looking at like the seed deposition in the first few inches of soil where a dabbling duck might feed. And we're going to take all that information that we know about known locations where ducks are using and get that information back to our area managers and say, look, this is where ducks want to be. Let's try and put that habitat on our management areas.
Yeah.
Because, it makes a lot of sense to create what they want versus what we think they want. When we finally know what they want, then we can give them what they really, really want and really, really need. And that's going to help circling back to everything that they need to do, making sure that they're, fat and healthy and, ready to go back to the breeding grounds, able to breed.
Right.
Is this only on refuges, or is this on some huntable land as well?
Well, yeah. So where we're going to be capturing them, we're going to be capturing them on refuge properties. So we've got White Lake Refuge that we're going to attempt to catch birds at, Hop In Refuge, and then we're also working with the Fish and Wildlife Service, and we're going to be trying to capture some birds at Chickasaw National Wildlife Refuge. So it's all happening in West Tennessee. We're going to try to capture the birds there, but we know that these birds aren't going to spend all of their time on these refuges. We know that they're going to hit some of our management areas. We know that they're going to hit private lands as well. So the students that we have working on this project, and it's a really good crop of students. They're really fantastic. They've already been out on the ground. They've already been talking to landowners and getting permission to go out and do vegetation surveys on these properties when we finally start getting data. So, that's the really cool part about it is we're gonna be able to get like a true feeling for what these birds are using because we're gonna have access to a lot of areas that aren't ours.
Yeah.
They belong to private landowners, and private landowners do a lot for waterfowl management. They do, and we don't acknowledge them a lot of times, but they really do. And they're out in West Tennessee, there are a lot of conservationists. There are a lot of people that are really, really into wetlands, waterfowl conservation. So we're hoping to see and translate that into some good information.
So if a hunter takes one of these birds with a transmitter on it, what's the next step?
Yeah, so that's a real possibility for sure. I mean, we can't put a sign or it'd be great if we could put a ribbon trailing on off the leg of the bird. Do not shoot me. Of course, that would be the invitation to shoot me.
Yeah. Like those helicopters at the beach with the big flag.
Right, exactly. It'd be great. It'd be great if we could put one on. But so we know that there's going to be a certain number of ducks that are going to get shot.
Yeah.
With these transmitters on. So. The transmitters have contact information on them, and these birds will have, an extra band on them that says, hey, please contact us, and it has there's an email and a phone number.
Tennessee Tech Mallard at gmail.com.
Yeah, so if somebody shoots a bird with one of these transmitters on them, please email tntechmallard@gmail.com.
There you go.
And let us know because. We would really like to get that unit back. We can refurbish them. We can put it back out on another bird and start collecting more information. We have some dummy.
What you call me?
Not you, but we have some dummy transmitters that we can replace the actual transmitter. So somebody can say, still have something that looks exactly like the transmitter.
Right.
It's just not the transmitter.
It might be cool to mount the bird or something with the transmitter
absolutely.
on it.
So, I mean, that's that's the idea behind it is that they will have their souvenir from the bird that they shot. So.
Kind of like a band. Folks like to collect the bands.
Absolutely. So, and, that's kind of cool. I mean, I'd be pretty pleased and happy and excited if I shot a bird like that.
Yeah.
Now, if you're watching online, you're seeing this huge picture of a transmitter on the wall on our TV, on our WildCast TV. But how big is
I can assure you it's not that big. So imagine it's about the size of a Matchbox car.
Okay.
So, cool. Everybody knows how big those are.
So we got a bunch of birds flying around with Matchbox on
it's kind of like what it's going to be,
I preferred Hot Wheels, but...
Okay.
Okay. So the transmitter is about the size of a little
toy Matchbox Hot Wheel car. Yeah.
And this one is red or kind of a brownish red color.
Yeah.
What was the choice for that? Why did you choose that?
Well, I don't think that we chose the color. I think that's just what the company makes them as.
Cool.
And because you don't really want anything that's too obvious on the bird.
Yeah.
Just draws attention. to the bird if it was silver or anything like that. Plus, you got to worry about silver getting hot on the back of a bird or whatever. But it's just, and of course, I'm assuming all this because I don't actually manufacture the transmitters, but that would be my speculation. You just want a color that's subdued and doesn't really stick out, and would be a beacon for predators or something like that.
And that fits on the back of the bird?
Yeah, these are backpacks. There's little straps that would wrap around the wings and the body of the bird that would keep this thing mounted on there. That black piece is a solar panel. So
I was gonna ask you about
that. These are really cool. Theoretically, we can get about 2 years worth of life out of these units. So, and that depends on how many, I told you could program it to tell you every minute, 5 minutes, 15 minutes or whatever of where that bird is at. So depending on how much data
chimes in.
How much data is collected by that unit and then transmitted to the satellite, because this information is being transmitted to the satellite, and then we're logging into the satellite and drawing the information back down. So that's what really kills the battery, is sending the signal up to the satellite. And so the more amount of data that it takes to send up, and with things that have batteries, rechargeable batteries, the more that they cycle down and recharge, that's what kills the life of your battery.
And encouraging the birds to be near Wi-Fi is always a good thing too.
Yeah, exactly.
Faster download speed.
Right, exactly. 4G. Depending on what you program your transmitters to collect and the amount they've got to send up to the satellite, we could theoretically get 2 years.
Wow,
so that's really what's exciting about that, is that we can put a transmitter on a bird this year, and we theoretically should be able to get them coming back next year.
Cool.
And so part of one of the things that we're going to look at is site fidelity, winter site fidelity. Something that we don't understand a lot about, but we might be able to get some answers with this type of project. Are there areas that birds love to come back to every single year?
So we talked about we're going to be sampling birds off of refuges, but will some of the ideas of planting and how to make habitat better, will it happen on some of the WMAs that we're hunting? So when the birds come down, we're going to be providing them this type of food or this area?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Jason.
Cool.
That is really the impetus for this project, is to get really good information about what ducks like and what we need to be putting on our management areas to make them attractive, make them beneficial and useful for the ducks that are coming down. That's a huge part of this project, for sure.
Awesome. It sounds like it's going to be cool. I'd like to go out and see some of this work happening. And you said it's a backpack, so it kind of straps around the wings, doesn't affect how it flies.
That's correct.
Awesome. Well, that's cool. What do you think, Don?
I think that's a neat deal.
I think it's great. tntechmallard@gmail.com is an email. Telephone number is 864-580-8003. So if you find one of these backpacks on a bird, make sure you report it and get it back to us.
Yeah, please do.
Jamie, as always, thank you for all the great information. Thanks for what you do for our migratory birds and all the work you're doing up there with the other guys. And
thanks. I enjoy coming down and chatting with you guys every once in a while.
Yeah. So keep coming back. Keep watching. This is Tennessee WildCast. tnwildlife.org is our website. Make sure you tune in there and watch the show. You can listen to it there and find all the information as far as hunting guides, fishing guides. Everything you need is right there at tnwildlife.org. So thank y'all for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Tennessee WildCast.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hey, it's all about Tennessee wildlife. It's what we do. Tennessee WildCast will be on the air again next week. We'll see you then.